by a bent line, by a straight line, by a crooked line. The Crooked Path, a podcast for modern cunning folk with Peter Paddon.
Hello and welcome to The Crooked Path. My name is Peter Paddon, in case you hadn't guessed. And tonight we're going to be having a look at Trick or Treat, because it's getting up to that time of year. But first, let's take a look at some news. For those of you who've been following my adventures in glass etching, I get the new cabinet comes on Friday, and so you can expect some pretty gnarly pictures coming out as I learn to do 3D carving. So that'll be quite an adventure. I'm also starting work on the next book, which will hopefully come out in time for Pantheacon next year. One of the advantages of being a publisher is I don't have to sit around waiting once it's written, but it's going to be full steam ahead with that now, as if I didn't have enough to do. And it's going to be on practical guising, making and using ritual masks. So that should be a fun one. And there'll be lots of pictures in it, of course, because there'll be lots of masks being made. And just a reminder again, for any of you who are going to be in New Orleans the weekend of the 8th and 9th of November, we'll be there too. We'll be at Arzuli's Voodoo store on Saturday afternoon doing a meet and greet with the other Pagan podcasters, and we'll be hanging around for the rest of the weekend as well. Linda will be attending the Folk Magic Festival with Ryan Foxwood and Mama Star Casas and Cindy Todo and Susan Diamond and all the other good folk that run that, and we'll be spending a few days sightseeing as well, because neither of us have been to New Orleans and we've both always wanted to go there, and now we're getting to, so woohoo! So if you're in the area, and I know a couple of people who put up with my shenanigans, aren't too far away from there, and you feel the urge to come and say hi, watch my Facebook page, and I'll be telling people where I'm hanging out when I'm sitting there watching people go by while Linda learns the mysteries of hoodoo and conjure. And hopefully you caught last week's premiere episode of American Horror Story Coven. I did, and although I haven't seen the previous seasons of American Horror Story, I quite enjoyed it. And of course the main reason I was watching it is because of that infamous photograph of Emma Roberts, one of the stars of the show, on set in a lunch break, walking around with my enchantment book in her hand, and with a bit of luck, through the miracles of modern video wizardry, you should be seeing that somewhere around there. Haha! So it is a real thing, and I actually did a search when I first found out about this picture. I did a Google image search on it and found it being used by the Daily Mail and the Telegraph in the UK, places in Italy, all over the world really, which was really cool, because of course nobody knows that that's my book except for the people who've heard me screaming, yelling and jumping up and down, but it's a small start, and it made me feel all woman squishy and gave me an excuse to watch the show. So there you go. So if you want to know where they're getting all their grandiose gestures from, it's from my book. It's my fault, I'm sorry. So there you go. So let's take a look at some lore, shall we? Now there's actually two things I want to talk about tonight. We're coming up on Halloween, which, if you're fine and British like what I is, you spell with an apostrophe between the two E's, and Americans apparently have lost the art of the apostrophe and they spell it without. But either way, it's a fun time of year where people dress up in nutty costumes and get way too drunk and eat way too much candy, just like pretty much every other holiday in the year. But well, maybe not so much the costumes. You don't generally wear a lot of sexy costumes for July 4th. At least I haven't seen any, but maybe I'm just going to the wrong parties. So what I wanted to talk about was a little bit about jack-o'-lanterns and trick-or-treat, because Halloween is often referred to in reference to the ancient Celtic holiday of Samhain, or Samhain for those who can't speak Gaelic. And the two are actually quite different. They do have links historically, but they are celebrated very differently. Halloween is All Hallows Eve is the church festival, and it is a time for interesting traditions which do come from pagan times, but then they finish it off with All Souls Day on the next day, which is a mass for the dear departed. And but a lot of the symbolisms and traditions that we associate with the season of Halloween do come from pagan Celtic Britain, and I wanted to have a look at some of them, because some of them can be, in their original form, can be a little bit different, and for me a little bit more interesting actually. Not that I have anything against scantily clad women begging me for candy. It's about all they ever do these days, but behave yourself. But some of the older versions of the traditions can be very interesting. So the first thing I wanted to look at was the venerable jack-o'-lantern. Jack-o'-lanterns are something that are ubiquitous at this time of year. You can't go into a supermarket without a vast selection of pumpkins for sale and cheap, nasty plastic tools for carving them with. And a little note for those of you that want to do some serious pumpkin carving: go to an art store and buy the tools that are used for working clay. They're much more durable, they do the job much nicer, and they'll make your hands hurt a lot less. And you too can be a master pumpkin carver. But the ancestor of the modern carved pumpkin is in fact the jack-o'-lantern, which was originally made from a large potato or a turnip. Largely because in the old days we didn't have the pumpkins, because they come from, guess where? Over here, in the good old US of A. They're an American thing. It's a bit like turkey. The ancient Celts did not celebrate the end of the year with a turkey roast either, because they didn't know what a turkey was. And so our Celtic ancestors made their jack-o'-lanterns out of turnips, which are much smaller than pumpkins, but they actually work pretty nicely. And you may wonder what the origins of the jack-o'-lantern are. I certainly did, and I went and did some research, and it turns out that the jack-o'-lantern comes from the story of Stingy Jack. I feel an animation project coming on here. The tale of Stingy Jack. Stingy Jack invited the devil to have a drink with him. True to his name, Stingy Jack didn't want to pay for his drink, so he convinced the devil to turn himself into a coin that Jack could use to pay for their drinks. Once the devil did so, Jack decided to keep the money and put it into his pocket, next to a silver cross which prevented the devil from changing back into his original form. Jack eventually freed the devil under the condition that he would not bother Jack for 1 year, and that should Jack die he would not claim his soul. The next year, Jack again tricked the devil into climbing into a tree to pick a piece of fruit. While he was up in the tree, Jack carved a sign of the cross into the tree's bark so that the devil could not come down, until the devil promised Jack not to bother him for 10 more years. So Jack's a sneaky bugger. Soon after, Jack died. As the legend goes, God would not allow such an unsavoury figure into heaven. The devil, upset by the trick Jack had played on him and keeping his word not to claim his soul, would not allow Jack into hell. He sent Jack off into the dark night with only a burning coal to light his way. Jack put the coal into a carved out turnip and has been roaming the earth with it ever since. The Irish began to refer to this ghostly figure as Jack of the Lantern, which gradually over the years got shortened to Jack-o'-lantern. In Ireland and Scotland, people began to make their own versions of Jack-o'-lanterns by carving scary faces into turnips or potatoes and placing them in windows or near doors to frighten away Stingy Jack and the other wandering evil spirits. In England, large beets are used. Immigrants from these countries brought the jack-o'-lantern tradition with them when they came to the United States. They soon found that pumpkins, a fruit native to America, make perfect jack-o'-lanterns. So there you have it. That's where the jack-o'-lantern comes from. It's meant to scare away ghosties and ghoulies and creepies and crawlies and things that go bump in the night. But it's also a fun craft project. So if you're going to carve a pumpkin or two to put on your doorstep, why not carve a turnip or two for the sake of ancient tradition as well? I'm going to, if I get the time. So let's talk about trick or treat. Trick or treat, which is also known by the traditional term of guising, not to be confused with the other sort of guising, which is the use of ritual masks, although the two are connected. There's a customary practice for children on Halloween in many countries. Children in costumes travel from house to house in order to ask for treats, such as candy or in some cultures money, with the question, trick or treat? Well, they normally sound a bit more normal than trick or treat, but trick or treat sounds kind of boring unless you go trick or treat, and you have to do the hand movement as well. The trick is a usually idle threat to perform mischief on the homeowner or their property if a treat is not given to them, such as the modern American practice of toilet papering from somebody's house, or throwing eggs at the house and stuff like that. In North America, trick-or-treating has been a customary Halloween tradition since the early 1950s. So there you go. Only from the 1950s. Who'd have thunk it?
Wow.
But the tradition of going from door to door receiving food had already existed in Great Britain and Ireland in the form of souling. That's S-O-U-L, not apostrophe H-O, you know what I mean. Where children and poor people would sing and say prayers for the dead in return for cakes. And this has interestingly been revived in Terry Pratchett's Discworld novels, where you have the soul cake duck, who's one of the supernatural beings that wanders around on Hogswatch night. Guising, children disguised in costumes going from door to door with food or coins, also predates trick-or-treat and was recorded in Scotland at Halloween in 1895, where masqueraders in disguise carrying lanterns made out of scooped out turnips visit homes to be rewarded with cakes, fruit and money. Trust the Scots to go for the money. So, some other Halloween traditions that you may find interesting and may not be aware of. In Great Britain, everybody wants to welcome the friendly spirits, so special soul cakes are put aside for them. And when children in costumes called upon the neighbours' homes on Halloween, they would be given soul cakes too. In some parts of Britain, Halloween in the past was known as Mischief Night. It was the night for mischief making. People would take the doors off their hinges on this night. The doors were often also thrown into ponds, so I'm guessing it's not the owner of the home that removed the door. Or taken a long way away. So door to door had a whole new meaning back then. No wonder the Brits don't like the Mormon missionaries. Oh dear. In England it is said that the elves rode on the back of the villagers' cats at Halloween. The cats had fun, but the villagers did not, and would lock their cats up so that the elves would not catch them. I can't see our cats enjoying being ridden by elves. I can't imagine the elves getting very far on these particular cats either.
Especially Bo.
The sort of sacked out kiddies that we have. You know, they sleep soundly at night because they spent a hard day dozing during the day. And children were told not to sit in circles of yellow and white flowers where fairies have danced, as they may be stolen by the fairies. It was also bad to sit under the hawthorn tree because fairies love to dance under the hawthorn tree as well, and if they saw children there they would get annoyed and sometimes steal them or just poke them and prod them till they ran screaming, like all children should. In England, you know, we talked about the jack-o'-lantern. When they're made out of beets, like they did in some parts of England, they're known as punkies. They cut out the design of their choice into the beat, carry them through the streets, and apparently, and I haven't been able to find the words to this, but I'm going to keep looking, they would sing the Punky Night Song and knock on the doors and ask for money. So there you have it. That's some old traditions to think of when you're getting ready to hand out vast quantities of candy on your doorstep at the end of this month. So let's look at something a little practical, shall we? Christopher rocks out to the funky intermission music. I thought I'd get kind of seriously practical today, and unfortunately I don't have anything to demonstrate this with, but I will perhaps come up with some samples for the actual end of the month episode. But I thought I would give some guidelines on how to make your own turnip jack-o'-lantern. First thing you want to do is cut off the turnip tops with a kitchen knife and then hollow them out with a melon baller. These are the ideal tools for the job, but you can use whatever works. Melon baller is a little sturdier than your average spoon, and so it does a better job, and it also has sharper edges, I think. So that's a good thing to use to hollow it out. Draw a face with a wax pencil, carve it with a utility knife, and use a small tool to cut small holes. You can use, do they call it linoleum on the yeah, the cutters that you can get for cutting linoleum and carving it work well on the turnips. So do some of the clay working tools, and dental tools can sometimes come in handy. So there's going to be a spate of thefts at dentists now, and it'll be all my fault. Use the small tools to cut small holes such as nostrils, and to make a small hole on each side of the turnip. Then cut a piece of twine to the desired length, slip an end through each hole and knot it, trim the ends, put a tea light inside it, and you can use the string as a handle, and you have a little jack-o'-lantern. It really is as simple as that. And if you do make some, take some photos and stick them on the Facebook page or something, so we can all see them and enjoy your creativity, because I think that would be terrific. Truly terrific. So that's about it for this week. Hope you found it interesting and entertaining. I don't know that it's particularly deep and mystical, but Samhain is a very important time of year for pagans, and we mustn't forget that aspect as well. We've been talking about the mighty dead last week, and ancestral work more generally the week before, and of course Samhain is the time when the mighty dead ride in the wild hunt led by Gwyn ap Nuth in Welsh traditions, to gather up the spirits of those who passed away over the previous year, who have not found their way into the Summerland, or whatever name you call the afterlife. So it is actually a time of great service. It's one of the most important festivals of the year for most pagans. In my tradition, a lot of traditional witchcraft traditions, it's very important working. We don't just celebrate, we actually work it, and we actually do a ritual to call the wild hunt and do that gathering up of the lost spirits and seeing them on their merry way with our love and our best wishes. So I think it's an important service that is provided by witchy type of folk. So bear that in mind whilst you're sort of slumped over in a candy coma, and spare a thought for the ancestors, and maybe raise a glass to them too. So thanks for listening.
By a bent line, by a straight line, by a crooked line. The Crooked Path, a podcast for modern cunning folk with Peter Paddon.